Hey there, folks. God, this screen is filthy. I'm sure glad you can't see this. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about superstition, at least until my bus shows up. I will be covering material I've covered before, so if this all seems repetitious to you, A, thank you for paying so close an attention to my work, but B, feel free to skip. Today I'm talking about superstition. What it is and how it functions and why we cannot and should not do without it. See, superstition gets a bad rap because we're all products of the rationalist Enlightenment and Western thinking after that and things like that. And so, you know, we think of superstitious as evil and ignorant. And the thing is, it is, in the public sense. Generally, when superstition comes up, it's like Christian scientists not wanting to use medicine, or people not wanting their kid vaccinated, or something like that. I mean, it's superstition. But the thing is, the human mind needs superstition. Because what superstition basically does is it gives us the ability to act even when we don't have sufficient information. In between actual knowledge and reason and total immobility lies superstition. And so if we did not have this capacity in our mind to generate a superstition, we'd be Burden's ass. And you know, when you're Burden's ass, you make an ass out of you and Burden, I guess. Where the idea is that if you put two identical piles of hay an equal distance from this theoretical donkey, both are equally tasty, equally tempting, then Burden's ass, the donkey, will just stand there forever, unable to decide. Obviously not true in the real world, but the idea of not being able to solve a question that requires an arbitrary answer is valid. Now, sticking with our proverbial ass, perhaps, despite the beginning of this experiment, we fold in the donkey's history, and in his history, generally, piles of hay on the left have been tastier and more rewarding than piles of hay on the right. That's not sufficient reason. I mean, it actually contains no information about these actual piles of hay. But it lets him make a decision. He goes for the one on the left, and therefore does not starve. And that is how we human beings work. We do, if we required enough information, like sufficient information, for every decision, we just get stymied all the time. We have an instinct in our mind, this is the new part, that we always assume that whatever knowledge we have is sufficient. Even if, from an objective point of view, it most definitely is not. Because we have to make decisions. We can't just sit there and wait for sufficient information to show up. And I mean, this works fine in everyday life. You really don't have to have detailed knowledge of every restaurant in your area to decide, let's go to Denny's. It gets us through most of life. Superstition works just fine because it's based on experience and possibly some knowledge. My head looks tiny in my glasses. Some knowledge that we have, and you know, it fills the gap. Superstition fills that gap. It's only a problem when that kind of superstitious thinking persists even with the availability of sufficient information, when there's actual evidence and data that is better because it's a superior, it's a sufficient and superior form of knowledge, and people go, no, I'll just stick with going with my gut. That's when superstition and reason end up clashing. So I think we have to understand, we who want to push for reason and progress and things like that, that what we think of as superstition is an excess of is an excess of unnecessary drive. Nobody's smart enough to know everything about everything they have to decide. The nature of the beast is that they don't want, superstition is sufficient for people who either lack higher thinking capacity, which is possible, can't rule that out, or are simply unwilling to use it. Because, hey, going with their gut has worked so far as they can tell. That's all from me for today, folks. I will talk to you nice people again tomorrow.